Hey everyone, it's Maddie.
And V, and today we're going to be showing you our read all day for May.
We've also tacked on at the very beginning what the books we were reading before that day. So for B, it's Everless, and for me, it's Replica by Lauren Oliver.
So I've just finished reading Everless by Sara Holland, and I'll try and keep my thoughts brief. This is the story of Jules, who is a servant girl, and with her father she was forced to leave Everless for mysterious circumstances when she was young. And then she turns 17 and decides that she would be able to earn more of a living if she went to go and work in Everless. The currency of this world is time, which is reaped from you through letting. So your blood is time and time is money. Her father is in a lot of debt and she needs to pay that off, even though her father is very not happy with the idea of her going to Everless as well, because he has a little secret stay away from the queen situation. And she starts as a servant girl, but then halfway through the book she realizes she would be able to achieve her personal goals in finding out more about her past and what happened to her as a child if she had a more prominent position. So she goes for a handmaiden job essentially for not the queen but the prince's betrothed, who again is a girl from very humble backgrounds. So it's the story of the history of these two girls with a little bit of magic and mystery and lots of intrigue. I forgot about this book that it is reveal after reveal after reveal, at least in the latter half. I really appreciated the red herrings, how this was set up to make you think one thing and then it completely twists it on its head. Like just when you think like, oh my gosh, I'm putting that together, it ends up not being what you think it is. So even though I'd read it before, it had been long enough that I'd forgotten all of that so I could appreciate the twists fully a second time round. The exposition is done really well in terms of the world building too. Super appreciated that. The one negative is maybe that if everyone had been a little bit more honest with each other from the very beginning, a lot of misunderstandings of purpose wouldn't have happened, but you know, you have to suspend your disbelief and appreciate that that is happening just so that there can be a book.
One of the huge selling points for Replica was that it was two sides of the same story. So you've got Lyra on one and then Gemma on the other, and you had to flip it to read both. I'm going to start with Lyra and then go over to Gemma, although I'm not actually sure if it would affect the reading experience because they could be the same story happening at the same time or chronologically one after the other. So I guess we'll discover as I read. I don't know anything about the plot besides one of them is like locked in this kind of institution based thing and she escapes, and then maybe the other girl is the person that finds her. So I think there's going to be some Stranger Things elements to it. So I'm 100 pages into Lyra's story and I think I'm going to switch over to Gemma's now, seeing as both girls have met up in one. And so I thought it would be better if I just read Gemma's up until she met Lyra in her perspective, just so that then I wasn't going from like connection back to nothing to find connection again. I think that'll just change the pace of reading as well, because Lyra's first 100 pages are all about introducing you to Haven, which is a research institute where replicas are formed of people and then they do lots of experiments on them. And it seems that the batches of replicas survive at different rates, so they're all dropping off, and at the beginning Lyra starts getting sick and she's having to hide it from the doctors because she doesn't want to be put in the box, which is where all of the sick the box. Also, the kind doctor was taken away for humanizing the replicas too much because they are meant to be treated as experiments, and everybody calls them it rather than she. And at the beginning it said that one of the boys, number 72, has escaped and they don't know if he's alive or dead. Around the 80-page mark, when Lyra is finding somewhere to go and puke, she comes across 72, and 72 was obviously running away, and he kind of convinces Lyra to go with him as she is starting to question her world and the fact that it's unraveling slightly. So it's pretty generic as far as science experiment escapes into the real world. I'm hoping that Gemma's perspective can be a bit more nuanced. After finishing Replica, this definitely feels like the kind of story that you can't swap who you read first, because there are so many reveals in each side that are spoiled by the previous girl's perspective. So if you were to just read Lyra's section, then you'd figure out a bunch of things that would completely ruin Gemma's section. And I'm not sure I really understood that, because it meant that there were absolutely no stakes, or like nothing was a surprise to the reader, only to the character, and that can be boring. There were a couple of twists at the end, which did surprise me. I'm pleased about that because it did make the reading experience a little bit more worthwhile. If it had just been the overlapping reveals, then I would have been so tragically disappointed in what this turned out to be. I don't know if it's enough to make me want to read the sequel, because I couldn't tell you what the girls are trying to achieve at the end of this book. Like, Lyra has escaped from the Institute, it's burned down, they've realised what the purpose of it was, and they seem to have already dispelled any threat towards them. Like, It's not a life or death situation for them to know what they know about what's been going on. One thing that is unavoidable in this book is the fact that both girls have an insta-love relationship with the boys they're with. Lyra and 72, maybe you could explain it away that they don't actually know that much about human relationships, so the speed is kind of normal for them, or I don't know, it's just all new to them, so maybe that can go to explaining why. And then in Gemma's storyline, she's an overweight character, and that's so derogatory in this whole thing. It reads very fat phobic, and it's not cute. I don't know, just any opportunity that Gemma had to mention her weight and how unattractive that made her. I can't believe that that was the attitude. So would I recommend it? No. So it's the 19th of May and I'm just about to start A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is all about a girl called Pippa who decides to work a cold case as part of her final year project. It seems pretty open and shut to her town, but she's the only person that thinks there might be more to it. And I'm really excited to read a thriller because it's been quite a while since I've read something from this genre. And this was a really buzzy book when it came out. I think there might even be a sequel or a spin-off or a companion, something like that coming soon. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
I shall be reading Evermore, which is the final book in the Everless duology, and I have been waiting to read this one for a really long time and I'm excited to finally get to it. Luckily, I've just come out of reading the first one, so I can hopefully get through like the first bit quickly because I don't have to do any catching up in the world. And Maddie and I are going to start doing some reading sprints now to hopefully start the day off at a good pace. So we'll start with 10 minutes. Let's see how much we can read. Let's go.
I've now read the first part of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and I'm loving it so much. The pace is just excellent. I think I'm reading it quickly because I'm so desperate to figure out what's happened. So in the first part, we've established the facts of what happened 5 years ago between Sal, the boy who was accused of murdering Andy Bell. Her body was never found. She was just declared dead by suspicious circumstances. Around the time that she went missing, Sal committed suicide, and so it was kind of put together that that was due to guilt and that he killed her, and Pip is out to prove that he didn't. In the first part as well, she has made connections with everybody from 5 years ago, the people that were friends with Andy, that knew Sal, and most importantly is Ravi, Sal's younger brother, who there might be a little bit of romance going on, but not very strong. And because Pip is working on it as part of her EPQ, it means that she can open doors for investigating this that Ravi wouldn't have been able to do by himself. So I think they're going to team up and it's going to be a little Nancy Drew situation. As I said, I'm just really loving it. There's a lot of mixed media in here where she's transcribing her interviews, looking at Facebook posts and text messages, and I think it's just the perfect balance of like in the narrative stuff and extras. I feel like if it was just all extras or all interviews, that would get quite boring quickly, but it's definitely keeping me on my toes, this one. I think the bit that just convinced me that I really liked it was when she catfished one of Andy's friends pretending to be someone from their school year. I was like, this girl is willing to do anything, and I'm excited to see how far she'll push it to figure out what happened. Might also just have to immediately pass this one on to B so we can discuss it.
I'm 150 pages through now, and I have to say I was a little bit upset by how the beginning went, just because it backtracked on the ending of the first book. So it ends with our main character fleeing, and then almost immediately she's brought back, which is kind of like, because then eventually when she is able to escape again, I just kind of thought, well, what did we learn in that time where she went back to where she was escaping from? Not a lot, honestly. And now it's got a little bit She-Ra, with the sense of like, oh, you've got a hidden destiny, a past with multiple lives, and now you need to kind of explore what happened to you in those. So she's returning to sites that meant something to her throughout history to try and get visions, I think, to give her more of direction for how she can defeat the enemy. I am reading it very, very quickly though, which I'm happy about, and I think that's because the writing's become unfortunately a little bit repetitious, not just in terms of plot, but the way that it keeps repeating things. Like, I think the author might be a little scared that you're forgetting some important facts. I've got just under 200 pages left to go though, so still plenty to see how the plot will develop. So who knows, maybe the ending will completely blow me away.
It's 11:15. B forced me to get up and get dressed before I continued reading any more of this, but I am so hooked. This is the perfect book to read all in one sitting. So I've got just over 100 pages left to go. Pip has now stalked someone, done some breaking and entering, and investigated what turned out to be a dead end. So things are definitely progressing more towards a solid conclusion, and the thing that she most recently discovered means that somebody has an alibi, and it also means that 5 other people were lying. So I just honestly cannot wait to see how this unfolds. I'm not doing much thinking myself actually of like who it could possibly be, because it's just so detailed. That's not really where my head is at when I'm reading this.
I'm finished with Evermore now, and I have to say I'm quite disappointed with it as a sequel. As I already mentioned, the plot was very repetitive, so it relied on our main character Jules travelling to different places, meeting new people who could tell her about her life, and she was also experiencing some beautiful creatures-esque flashbacks where she delved deeper into her memories of past lives, etc. to learn. It kind of like fell into a pattern of new place, new people, new memory, which made the middle section drag
quite a bit, I will admit. The ending as well, in terms of how satisfying it is, was it? I don't think I've really made up my mind whether it was a worthy ending. Like, I think it was fine, but it didn't necessarily need this book to happen to have been accomplished. Thankfully, it was only 350 pages, though it definitely could have been shorter. I think as a whole, this series is nice, and I'm definitely pleased that I didn't have to wait any length of time between reading the first and the second one, because if you read this when it came out after waiting like a year or so, I can see why you would have been even more disappointed. But it's like there's nothing particularly wrong with it, but it just doesn't sparkle quite as much as the first, which did so much in terms of pacing, reveals. Like, it's one of the most accomplished fantasy openers there was, and I was really excited actually that it was just going to be a 2-book series, because more often than not things are like forced into being a trilogy unnecessarily. But I think this could have just been a 500-page standalone rather than split into 2 books. I think that would have actually made it a little bit more concise. So those are my thoughts on Evermore by Sara Holland, and now I've got to pick what I'm going to read next. There is a wasp in my room, so we'll just deal with that. I'm thinking I'm going to finish The End of the World as We Know It. I got 146 pages through this when I started reading it like maybe 2 weeks ago, and then I put it down because I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to finish it. But Maddie really enjoyed it, and it's like kind of silly fun, and since I'm in the mood to read something quickly, I think I could definitely finish the 150 pages in less than an hour, which sounds kind of crazy, but I want to read the book that Maddie is reading, so I don't want to like start something that I have the possibility of not finishing, because I know as soon as she's done with it I'm going to want to put down whatever I'm reading to read that. So I think I have a high chance. The bee is right there. Oh my god. And look how cute my bookmark was. I came sucked in.
I forgot to mention that this book is a Breakfast Club-esque story where 4 characters who tenuously know each other in their previous lives end up trapped in a basement together on the cusp of an alien invasion. The aliens essentially wipe out everyone else in their town, so when they emerge from this basement, which kind of worked like a bunker, they find everyone they knew vaporized, and now they have to sort of kill the aliens, not in like a Stranger Things way, because none of them are supernatural, but it's that like, let's ransack the local supermarkets and toy stores, whatever, for weapons. It's quite fun, although a little bit like gory.
I'm in the home stretch now of figuring out what happened in this mystery. Pip thinks that she's figured out the main suspect, and I have to say I definitely believe her. I think maybe I got there a few pages before she did, especially after she did her spider diagram explaining all of the connections between the people. But the thing that really sunk it in was the fact that throughout the book Pip has been receiving these threats to tell her to stop working on the case, and not everybody would have access to those places to place the notes, so the suspect list becomes shorter based on that. So now all that's left is to see whether she's right or not. And I'm done with Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It was so excellent. A 5-star read from me. I loved this mystery. I loved how it was put together. It turns out that there were more twists than I was expecting there to be, so even if you do put it together, you will not have by the end. There was so much going on. It was really well plotted, and what I liked about it the most is that it was so plausible that Pippa would have been able to do everything that she managed to do in this book. It wasn't far-fetched or kind of overdramatic like teen crime TV shows. I'll definitely be picking up Holly Jackson's next thriller after this one, and I'm really impressed. Hopefully Bea will read it soon, and then we can talk about how well crafted it was. But if you like thrillers or haven't liked them in the past and are looking for one to change your mind, then A Good Girl's Guide to Murder will be it. I just finished this one and it was actually really fun. I liked it in the end. It wasn't like implications of aliens, like they actually fought aliens. So I don't think I've ever read anything like it before, which I think helped how much I enjoyed it because it was totally different. So if you want a bit of a weird and quirky read, then I would recommend it. The writing I thought was actually really nice. It's told in third person but follows each of the 4 main characters, and I thought the distinction between the voice and the action, the time and the location was done really, really well. I've decided that my next pick will be Out of the Blue by Sophie Cameron because it's under 300 pages and is on my TBR shelf, and it's one that Bea's already read, so it completely strikes it off of anybody's TBR and we can put it back on the main shelves when I'm done. This is all about an angel who falls to earth and the family who finds her. It sounds cute and whimsical just like Lorelei, so I'm excited to see what I think. I got you reading it straight away.
Yeah, exactly. I thought no time like the present.
Can't wait to see what you think.
Yeah, I hope I like it just as much as you did. I think because I know it's good now, like that set my
the expectations
high, so
yeah.
It's got more to do to meet them. You should have undersold it.
Hello, little friend. Get my net out. It's like a stink bug for Animal Crossing. That's the joys of reading outside, everyone.
Yes, right.
How are you doing with your book? I am 180 pages through and I think it's only 280. Yeah, so 100 left to go. It's really lovely. It's quite quiet actually as a story. Like there's not much to it, they find the angel, and like angels have been falling on Earth, but Tea Cake is the first angel that's survived the crash. So Jaya is hiding her from her dad, who strongly believes in these angels and is kind of obsessed with them, and so she thinks that if he knows that they can live, that will do something damaging to his view, because her mum died recently, and there's something about like angels falling and reincarnation and stuff that is like not great. Not great for people that have lost people. And she's met these twins called Ali and Callum, who help her hide the angel, and they're really lovely. Ali has CF, and I'm at the point in the story now where Jay is just like realising how dangerous that is to her health.
They need to be sensible.
Yeah, how they need to be sensible, what a struggle it is for Ali. And she's also just been contacted by an old girlfriend, Leah, who is part of the cult that hates these fallen angels and is really against them. So that'll be drama. Yeah.
I'm 130 pages through A Girl's Guide to Murder now, and I am really enjoying it, but I think maybe it's a slight more slow paced than I was expecting. It deals with a lot of the mixed media, as Maddie said earlier, and I find the interviews kind of difficult to read because they're in really small font, so I have to pay like super close attention, but I like the attention to detail that she's taking as well into working things out. I'm just looking forward to when things start falling into place and she starts making more leaps into working out what happened. I also think this book is a lot like If Geek Girl Solved a Murder. Pip has a lot of similarities with Harriet just in how she approaches things, views the world, and I think that methodical going through everything and trying to work out the truth is exactly the kind of thing that Harriet would get caught up with. So if you liked Geek Girl, then I'm sure you'll like this one too.
I'm finished with Out of the Blue now, and it was a really lovely read. I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars in the end, and put it on your TBRs for LGBT because there is lovely lesbian rep in this. So the stakes definitely got higher in the last 100 pages as Tea Cake the angel is kidnapped and it's up to Jaya to try and rescue her. But there was a really interesting moral conundrum with how that all happened. And I think even though this book is so short, like the characters are given such good motivations. What I also liked as well is that even though this obviously has like a magical realism element to it, it definitely wasn't overpowering. It felt more like it was running in the background. Almost the more important thing for Jaya was her relationship with Ali and what happened to her mum in the past, and all of the guilt that she had caught up in her death. And now it's time for some birthday cake ice cream that we got from Sara. Oh, it's a lot harder than it was yesterday.
Nice cream, nice cream.
Get some leverage on that.
I asked Bea to choose my next read, and she went with Dumplin by Julie Murphy because I'm getting her to read Girl's Guide to Murder so soon. She picked this one because apparently it's good for the weather. Hot, sticky Texas, I think it is. I did really love the movie when I watched it, but it's been long enough now that I can't really remember it, so the book will be a fun experience rediscovering that story and all the more detail that could come with it. Hello.
Hello.
What are you reading now? You're still going with
Sorry,
this?
I'm not.
What are you up to? Is this how far through she is?
Got ages left.
200 pages to
Ages.
go. Eat your ice cream and then back again.
Come here and just feel another day as the dawn comes once again. And if you feel okay, drifting through these waves, I'll be your sailor. La da da.
That pigeon poops. We're in the disaster zone.
So while we were out at the park, I managed to read 80 pages of Dumplin, and now I'm over 100, and the story isn't like what I thought it would be. It's very character focused, and you know, the pageant hasn't really come up as a plot thing. They mentioned the girls are training for it, but Willowdean did challenge someone that she could enter if she wanted to, but there's been no real progress towards that plot. It's mostly focused on her relationship with Beau, who's the guy she works with at the diner, and how she has insecurities about her body that means she won't let him get close to her, and also her friendship with Ellen. I think that's like the backbone of the whole story. I can't remember this being a thing in the movie, but Ellen has this friend called Callie that she works with that doesn't respect her friendship with Willowdean and thinks that Elle's just hanging out with her for pity. And the two girls, Elle and Will, are kind of split up over the summer because of Will's relationship with Beau and Elle getting closer with her boyfriend Tim. So now we're back in the school year, we're getting to see them interact together a lot more, and I hope the pageant is a way to bring them back together. But then who's to say that the pageant even comes up in 100 pages time? The pacing of this is really surprising me, and there was a 2-month time jump as well, even weirder. So I can't anticipate this based on the movie, but I'm still enjoying a character focused book. Bea, how are you feeling about your book?
Just annoyed that it's taken me so long to read. I'm like, if this was a crime drama, I would have it finished in an hour and 45 minutes. I'm sure there's going to be at least another 2 big shocks for the end.
I thought that the drugs plotline was a bit dry. Like that was the...
Yeah, I'm just coming to the conclusion of that now, I think. Really, the most interesting bit should be this bit, but I am just reading it like quite slowly, and I don't know why. Every time I try and tell myself like, right, come on, pick up the pace, I can't seem to, so.
Also, as today is officially the release date of the new Hunger Games prequel, Bea and I have started reading the trilogy. So, starting with the Hunger Games, obviously, I read 50 pages out loud to her yesterday while she was tidying my shelves. It was a nice handoff of tasks. Bea prefers tidying and she wanted to do it.
I don't like tidying, I like
Organising. That's what it was.
Which is what I was doing.
So now I'm going to read the next 50 pages and then we're going to swap, so hopefully we might get this one done today. Because it's quite fast paced, and from the first 50 pages, Katniss is quite funny. Like, her narrative is way more witty than I remember it being, although she is quite deadpan, that's definitely her style. So stay tuned for us reading the trilogy and potentially the Birds Ballads one. It's a new day and I'm finished with Dumplin. I read the last 70 pages this morning and I really liked it. I feel like in those last 70 pages it was everything that I wanted the book to be. The pageant ended up actually pushing a wedge further between Ellen and Will, so it wasn't until the very end that they resolved their problems, talked about their friendship and how they were still meaningful to each other even if they were growing apart. Also in the second half you get to know the other girls that are competing in the pageant with Will, her little band of revolution girls. I might have to read the companion if it focuses more on them because they were such a fun bunch. I think the thing that sticks out the most to me about this book is Will's relationship with her mum Rosie. Throughout the whole book they're so discontent with how each other sees themselves. They're asking each other to always be something that they're not and never coming to a compromise, but towards the end they do finally have that moment where they just acknowledge that they love each other for who they are, and it was very satisfying. It felt very real. The movie is definitely better, but I did like the romance focus. I can't actually remember there being 2 love interests in the movie. To see Will going through that and coming to like the whole I don't have to be insecure about my body, I'm just who I am, that kind of embracing her confidence was really lovely.
Yesterday I finished A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and I did enjoy it, but it took me so long to read that I think that took away from my enjoyment a little bit. The story is so much more about just describing the murder case and getting to the bottom of it, that the main character, Pip, is sort of like removed from those actions. There's no character development for her or for anyone really in the town. Even though it had so much plot, it was a little bit character lacking. And then I picked up Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton because I have had the 3rd book to read in this series for ages and ages and ages, but I have been hesitant to reread them because I know whilst this one isn't very big, the 2nd book is like over 600 pages and I'm just like never in the mood to reread a book that big. So I was like, I'm finally going to bite the bullet because we're trying to get through the books on our TBR. So I knew this had to happen and I thought maybe because it's a reread I'll be able to read it quickly, and I really did. I'm 100 pages through already and I just really like this series. I know that the 2nd one I like even more though. First thing I did when I woke up is finish the games. I read up to part 2 last night and then this morning I just finished it off, so I had like 150 pages left. I'm definitely going to have to watch the film again, but then again the books just play out in a film like so clearly in my mind.
Exactly.
They're so easy to see and I'm very excited for the 2nd one because that's the
Everybody
best
knows
film.
that's the best.
So I'm like, is it the best book? Yesterday I think I managed to read like 1,200 pages overall, which is really awesome and about as much as I can do in a read all day, to be honest.
So 1.3k was the total number of pages I managed yesterday, and hopefully our reading pace doesn't slow down because we've still got a few days off. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for following along on our read all day. Look forward to new videos coming soon and we'll see you next time.